In a striking turn of events for the Republican landscape ahead of the 2028 presidential election, Florida's political heavyweights Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio and Rick Scott have found themselves struggling in the polls, garnering less than 10% support collectively. According to a recent McLaughlin survey conducted in late April, support for DeSantis, who leads the trio, has fallen to 6%, down 2 points from the previous month. This decline suggests a significant shift in voter sentiment as the Republican Party seeks to define its identity in a post-Trump era. The McLaughlin poll sampled 456 Republican voters and highlights the difficulties faced by Florida's prominent politicians. DeSantis has shown some strength among black voters, where he holds 11% support, placing him second behind Vice President J.D. Vance and Donald Trump Jr., who lead the pack with 25% and 21% respectively. In contrast, Marco Rubio has plummeted to just 2% support, a stark decrease from previous surveys. Even as speculation grows about his potential candidacy. Notably, Rubio's strongest support comes from liberal Republicans, where he still manages to achieve a modest 6%. Rick Scott, the current U.S. Senator from Florida, is faring even worse. With a mere 1% support overall, he finds a slight reprieve among Republicans who previously backed Kamala Harris over Trump, capturing 4% of that demographic. His appeal extends to Hispanic voters, where he has garnered 3% support, but overall the data reflects a worrying trend for Scott and his aspirations for the presidency. This polling downturn is further complicated by the ongoing political drama surrounding former President Trump, whose shadow continues to loom large over the GOP. The internal dynamics of the party appear to be shifting as candidates grapple with their identities in relation to Trump, who remains a dominant figure despite legal challenges and controversies. The results of this poll indicate that Florida's trio may struggle to gain traction in a field that is increasingly dominated by figures who have aligned closely with Trump's base. In a related development, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has found himself in the spotlight for his comments regarding a Biden-era disinformation dossier targeting a Trump administration official. During a recent cabinet meeting, Rubio revealed that the now-defunct Global Engagement Center had compiled lists identifying individuals as purveyors of disinformation, raising concerns about free speech and the role of government in monitoring citizens. This revelation has sparked debate over the limits of governmental oversight and the implications for political discourse in the United States as the 2028 election cycle unfolds. The implications of these polling results and statements from key figures like Rubio will likely influence the broader narrative around the Republican Party. The challenges faced by DeSantis, Rubio and Scott underscore a critical juncture for the GOP as it attempts to reposition itself in the wake of Trump's presidency. Looking ahead, the coming months will be pivotal for these candidates as they seek to reclaim voter confidence and redefine their platforms. With the landscape in flux, the Republican Party's strategies and alliances will be tested as they head into what promises to be a contentious election season. As the party navigates these challenges, the effectiveness of their messaging and ability to connect with key voter demographics will be crucial in determining their paths forward. In a swirl of controversy, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth finds himself embroiled in yet another scandal that has raised serious questions about his judgment and integrity. Following the fallout from the Signalgate incident, where sensitive military discussions were mishandled, Hegseth is now under scrutiny for alleged plagiarism in his senior thesis from Princeton University. This latest development has not only reignited debates about his credibility but also spotlighted potential ramifications for his position within the Trump administration. Hegseth's thesis, titled "Modern Presidential Rhetoric and the Cold War Context," has come under fire for containing at least 8 significant instances of uncredited material and paraphrasing that experts have deemed a breach of academic integrity. The Daily Princetonian, the university's student paper, reported that plagiarism detection models identified 12 passages, of which 3 experts agreed were notably problematic. While the severity of these infractions varied among the experts, some dismissing them as minor, others categorizing them as serious violations, the consensus indicates a troubling pattern. James M. Lang, an academic integrity expert, described the situation as borderline, emphasizing the ambiguity that often surrounds cases of alleged plagiarism. "There's no silver bullet here, there's no smoking gun in terms of a deep example of plagiarism," he noted, highlighting the gray areas that complicate such assessments. Yet the implications of Hegseth's thesis could resonate beyond the academic realm, particularly given his high-profile role as Defense Secretary. Hegseth's thesis includes a contentious passage regarding President George W. Bush's reaction to the 9/11 attacks, which closely mirrors language from a 2001 article in the Washington Post that was not cited in Hegseth's work. Critics argue that this raises not only ethical concerns but also questions about his ability to lead with integrity in a position that demands accountability and transparency. The Pentagon has responded to the allegations with support for Hegseth, with Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell asserting that Hegseth has authored numerous publications and papers, all of which have undergone rigorous scrutiny during his confirmation process. "They found no plagiarism because there was no plagiarism. This is a fake story designed to distract from the DoD's historic accomplishments under President Trump," Parnell defended. However, the backdrop of Hegseth's controversies only thickens with the recent critique from John Oliot, the Pentagon's former spokesperson, who characterized the last month as a full-blown meltdown for the department under Hegseth's leadership. Oliot's warnings about Hegseth's precarious position come amid a series of crises, including the Signalgate incident and allegations regarding his handling of sensitive information, further complicating the secretary's standing in the administration. As the scrutiny intensifies, the potential fallout for Hegseth continues to grow. Speculation abounds regarding whether President Trump, known for his decisive leadership style, will opt to dismiss Hegseth in the wake of these controversies. With the defense secretary's credibility now questioned and the Pentagon facing ongoing scrutiny, the future of his tenure appears increasingly uncertain. Looking forward, the unfolding narrative surrounding Pete Hegseth serves as a critical reminder of the intersection between personal integrity and public responsibility. As the administration grapples with these challenges, the coming weeks may prove pivotal, not only for Hegseth but also for the broader implications on the credibility of the Defense Department. The stakes are high and the spotlight remains firmly on Hegseth as he navigates this tumultuous period. In an era where public health and political rhetoric increasingly intersect, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the newly appointed U.S. Secretary of Health, has sparked significant controversy with his comments linking childhood autism to parental responsibility and vaccination decisions. In his recent statements, Kennedy urged parents to take more initiative in researching their children's health, positing that they bear some responsibility for their children's developmental outcomes. This perspective has drawn sharp criticism from various health experts and advocates who argue it perpetuates harmful misconceptions about autism and vaccines. During his first press conference, Kennedy emphasized the need for parents to scrutinize not only their children's diets and toys but also the medications they receive. "We have to recognize we are doing this to our children and we need to put an end to it," he asserted, suggesting a direct link between parental choices and autism diagnoses. Critics, however, have pointed out that such statements could shift blame to parents, particularly mothers who have historically faced stigmatization regarding their children's diagnoses. Jessica Calarco, a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, highlighted that Kennedy's rhetoric implicitly suggests that parents are at fault for the condition, a notion that has been widely discredited by rigorous scientific research. Kennedy's comments echo a troubling narrative that many parents of autistic children, like Shannon Desroches Rosa, have experienced. Rosa recounts a time when she believed in the debunked theory that vaccines were linked to autism, a belief that led her to avoid vaccinations for her children. "There is no association between vaccines and autism. As much as any science can be settled, that is settled," she stated, emphasizing the danger of revisiting this misconception, which Kennedy's remarks seem to revive. The implications of Kennedy's statements extend beyond individual parental choices. They also have the potential to reshape public health policy and vaccine confidence in the U.S. The suggestion that parents should bear the burden of researching vaccine safety undermines the established consensus among health professionals regarding vaccinations. In fact, Andrew Nixon, a spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services, defended Kennedy's approach, claiming it is pro-safety and pro-transparency. Yet this framing has raised alarms among public health advocates, who see it as an invitation for misinformation to proliferate. As the nation grapples with one of the worst measles outbreaks in recent history, Kennedy's rhetoric has found a receptive audience among parents worried about vaccine safety. Some parents, like Katrina Britton, have expressed support for Kennedy's stance, believing that vaccination decisions should be personal and informed by individual research. This perspective, however, poses a significant risk of eroding trust in scientific consensus and public health initiatives, as seen in the alarming rise of vaccine hesitancy. The political ramifications of Kennedy's comments are also noteworthy. As the Trump administration continues to navigate contentious public health policies, Democrats are seizing on parental fears surrounding vaccine safety and rising costs associated with child-rearing. Voices like that of Representative Brittany Pedersen, a new mother, resonate deeply with constituents who are alarmed by the current administration's handling of public health issues. "It's very scary," she remarked, suggesting that the public's growing anxiety could motivate political mobilization among concerned parents. In this climate of fear and misinformation, the consequences of Kennedy's statements may extend beyond public health, influencing the broader political landscape. As Democrats seek to harness parental frustrations related to rising costs and vaccine skepticism, they face the challenge of effectively countering the narratives propagated by Kennedy and his allies. This dynamic could shape the upcoming electoral battles as both parties vie to connect with voters on issues that directly affect their families. As the conversation around vaccines, autism, and parental responsibility continues to evolve, the discourse will undoubtedly influence not only individual health decisions but also broader public health policies and political strategies. In an age where misinformation can quickly spread, the duty falls on both health officials and political leaders to provide accurate information and foster a supportive environment for families navigating these critical health decisions. The intersection of health and politics remains fraught with challenges, but it also presents an opportunity for meaningful engagement and reform in the way society approaches child health and welfare. In an unprecedented move, the Trump administration is preparing to accept a lavish gift from the royal family of Qatar, a Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet, which is set to serve as a replacement for Air Force One during President Donald Trump's second term. This proposal, which sources describe as potentially the most valuable gift ever given to the United States by a foreign government, has ignited a firestorm of ethical and legal questions surrounding its implications. According to sources familiar with the arrangement, the aircraft, often referred to as a flying palace due to its opulent configuration, will be utilized by Trump until he vacates the presidency, after which it will be transferred to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation. The gift was originally anticipated to be publicly announced during Trump's upcoming visit to Qatar, but a senior White House official indicated that the official presentation would not occur during this trip. In a statement on social media, Trump characterized the transaction as very public and transparent, asserting that it complies with Defense Department regulations. However, this assertion has not quelled growing concerns among lawmakers and legal experts. "It's not just bribery, it's premium foreign influence with extra legroom," said Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, echoing the sentiments of many who view the arrangement as a violation of the Constitution's emoluments clause, which prohibits government officials from accepting gifts from foreign entities. Legal experts have weighed in on the matter, with White House lawyers reportedly drafting analyses that assert the legality of accepting such a gift. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Trump's chief legal advisor David Warrington concluded that it is permissible for the Department of Defense to accept the aircraft as long as its ownership is transferred to the Trump Library before the end of his term. Bondi provided a legal memorandum that detailed this position, aimed at addressing potential concerns regarding bribery and foreign influence. Despite the administration's assurances, skepticism remains. The aircraft, valued at approximately $400 million, will need to undergo modifications to meet U.S. military specifications, adding further layers of complexity to the situation. The Air Force has already contracted aviation firm L3Harris to ensure that the jet is adequately outfitted for presidential use, a process that is expected to incur significant costs. The broader implications of such a gift are also troubling to many observers. The precedent it sets for foreign influence in U.S. governance raises ethical dilemmas that are likely to resonate in political discourse long after Trump leaves office. The current fleet of Air Force One consists of two aging Boeing 747-200 jets that have been in service since 1990, with new aircraft not expected to be delivered until 2029 at the earliest. This timeline has reportedly frustrated Trump, who has sought to expedite the replacement process through various means, including enlisting the help of tech mogul Elon Musk. As the controversy unfolds, it is clear that the implications of accepting such a gift will extend far beyond the immediate logistics of aircraft modification and transfer. Lawmakers are calling for greater scrutiny of foreign gifts to public officials, and many are questioning the motivations behind Qatar's extravagant offer. Amidst the ongoing debate, it remains to be seen how this issue will shape the narrative surrounding Trump's presidency and the future of U.S.-Qatar relations. As we look ahead, the political and legal ramifications of this arrangement will likely evolve, drawing increased attention from both domestic and international observers. The acceptance of such a gift may well set a precedent for future administrations, prompting a re-evaluation of the laws governing foreign gifts to public officials and the ethical standards expected of those in power. In a significant development in U.S.-China relations, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced on May 12, 2025, that he anticipates further meetings with Chinese officials in the coming weeks to advance trade negotiations. This announcement follows a recent agreement to temporarily reduce the tariffs that both countries have imposed on each other, a move aimed at easing tensions that have escalated into a full-blown trade war over the past few years. Bessent expressed optimism during an appearance on CNBC's Squawk Box, stating, "I would imagine in the next few weeks we will be meeting again to get rolling on a more fulsome agreement." Although the specifics of the upcoming meeting, including its location, have yet to be determined, Bessent emphasized the establishment of a new mechanism for ongoing discussions, which he believes will help avoid further escalation of tariff pressures. The backdrop to these talks is a recently announced 90-day pause on tariffs, which allows for a reduction in the baseline tariff rate from 145% to 30% on most Chinese goods, while China has lowered its tariffs on U.S. imports from 125% to 10%. This pause, which both sides hope will facilitate a more stable trade environment, has already sparked a notable rally in global stock markets, with the S&P 500 rising by 3.3% on the day of the announcement. Bessent conveyed a sense of urgency regarding the discussions, noting that there was a very long and in-depth sidebar regarding the critical issue of fentanyl trafficking, which has been a significant point of contention between the two nations. He remarked, "I think that we saw here in Geneva that the Chinese are now serious about assisting the U.S. in stopping the flow of precursor drugs," suggesting a potential area for collaboration that could strengthen the bilateral relationship. The tariff reductions come at a time when both economies are feeling the strain of prolonged trade hostilities. U.S. businesses had begun to suspend orders in anticipation of a resolution, and Chinese manufacturers were experiencing a sharp decline in export orders to the U.S. The agreement marks a crucial step away from the brink of an economic crisis that could have resulted from an all-out trade war, which both sides seem eager to avoid. Bessent's comments were echoed by Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, who described the talks as productive and constructive. He emphasized the importance of the discussions not only for the two countries but also for the global economy, signifying a mutual recognition of the need for cooperation amid rising economic pressures. Despite the positive developments, analysts caution that the current agreement lacks substantial commitments from either side regarding long-term trade imbalances or currency manipulation. Mark Williams, chief Asia economist for Capital Economics, noted that while the pause represents a significant retreat from the aggressive tariff policies of the Trump administration, there is no guarantee that a lasting agreement will emerge from the negotiations. Looking ahead, the stakes remain high. The U.S. is keen to further open China's markets to American businesses while maintaining strategic decoupling in critical sectors like technology and pharmaceuticals. Bessent articulated the U.S. goal of achieving a balance that allows both economies to benefit without fully severing ties. "We do not want a generalized decoupling from China, but what we do want is a decoupling for strategic necessities," he explained, underscoring the complexities of navigating economic interdependence. As both nations prepare for more discussions, the international community watches closely, aware that the outcomes of these negotiations will have far-reaching implications for global trade dynamics. The temporary tariff reductions may be a sign of progress, but the path to a comprehensive and lasting agreement remains fraught with challenges. Analysts and stakeholders alike will be looking for tangible outcomes in the weeks to come as the U.S. and China strive to reshape their economic relationship in a way that minimizes disruption and fosters stability in the global marketplace. In the midst of ongoing discussions about tariffs and international trade, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick recently made headlines with his assertion that the 10% tariffs imposed on goods will remain in place for the foreseeable future, despite President Donald Trump's earlier comments indicating potential shortages in stores due to these tariffs. Lutnick confidently stated that American consumers would not bear the brunt of the costs. During an appearance on CNN's State of the Union, he cited a series of forthcoming trade agreements, including a recent deal with the United Kingdom, as evidence that U.S. store shelves would remain stocked with a variety of products. Lutnick's remarks came in stark contrast to Trump's earlier admission during an April cabinet meeting, where he acknowledged that families might have to adjust their purchasing habits, saying maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30. This candid reflection on the realities of tariffs has raised concerns among consumers and businesses alike, with some toy distributors warning that the current 145% tariff rate could jeopardize holiday sales. "We do expect a 10% baseline tariff to be in place for the foreseeable future," Lutnick stated, while maintaining that the impact on consumers would be minimal. He argued that businesses would shoulder the costs of the tariffs, insisting that domestic products would remain unaffected. "Don't buy the silly arguments that the U.S. consumer pays," he said, suggesting that foreign manufacturers would need to compete more aggressively to retain their market share. However, economic analysts are not as optimistic. Many believe that companies have already begun passing the costs on to consumers, leading to an expected rise in inflation in the coming months. A report from the Center for American Progress indicated that these tariffs could cost U.S. households as much as $5,200 annually, a figure that raises serious questions about Lutnick's assurances. In a separate yet related matter, Lutnick is also preparing for a significant diplomatic trip to Saudi Arabia, where he will accompany President Trump. This trip comes at a delicate time, as families of victims from the September 11 attacks are urging him to advocate for the extradition of Omar al-Bayami, a Saudi national with alleged ties to the attackers. Lutnick, who lost hundreds of employees on that tragic day while leading Cantor Fitzgerald, has been called upon to use his position to push for accountability in his discussions with Saudi officials. The family's letter, which garnered over 150 signatures, emphasizes that any strengthening of economic ties with Saudi Arabia must begin with justice for the victims of the September 11 attacks. They expressed hope that Lutnick's unique background and personal connection to the tragedy would enable him to advocate effectively for their cause. The letter states this issue transcends politics, it is a matter of principle, highlighting the family's desire for closure and accountability. While Lutnick has acknowledged receipt of the letter and expressed appreciation for the family's sentiments, it remains to be seen how he will balance these humanitarian concerns with the broader economic agenda during his trip. The intersection of trade policy and diplomacy underscores the complexities Lutnick faces in his dual roles as Commerce Secretary and a figure deeply affected by the events of 9/11. As the situation unfolds both in terms of tariffs and international relations with Saudi Arabia, Lutnick's actions will be closely monitored. The implications of these tariffs could resonate far beyond retail prices, potentially influencing the broader economy as inflationary pressures mount. Moreover, the resolution of the family's plea for justice could redefine U.S.-Saudi relations, adding another layer of significance to Lutnick's upcoming discussions. The coming months will likely reveal how these intertwined narratives will shape the future of American trade and international diplomacy.